Hey divers, Alec Peirce Scuba, another episode of Sea Hunt Remembered. However, it's not just Sea Hunt that I have this old stuff. The other day I was in a store and I had on my Indian vest. I have a vest that I wear, it says Indian on it, and some guy says to me, do you really have an Indian? Fair question, because you know lots of people wear Harley Davidson or other stuff and they don't, but I do have an Indian. I have an Indian mug, an Indian vest, an Indian jacket. I have an Indian. I have a brand spanking new 2015 Indian vintage, and it's in vintage colors too, black and red. There are very, very few of those made, and I happen to have one. It's a fantastic motorcycle, 1800 cc's. I've had cars with smaller engines than this bike. It's a whole lot of fun. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in. Before I start talking about comic books, again, because comic books were a big part of Sea Hunt. In most cases, for a lot of people, it is the comic books that they remember seeing, having, and maybe reading. All the other stuff in my collection is extra stuff, and some people remember it, but a lot of people don't. The comic books are special. So I want to talk about comic books again, something special about the museum. But before I do that, I want to show you two things. First of all, a lot of people have been sending in comments and questions, which I love, by the way. Send in lots of comments and questions. I love it. The comments are great, and if I have questions, I'll try to get you answers if I possibly can. If you put in suggestions, things you want to know about, then Kevin and I will incorporate them into a future Sea Hunt Remembered. I have just about everything to do with Sea Hunt, just a matter of my finding it, pulling out of my collection, making up a little speech about it, which is not hard for me, and talking about it. But some people have been asking where they can get Sea Hunt episodes. Well, don't do it the hard way. I did it the hard way. I searched and found the films. Now you've seen on the Sea Hunt Remembered series, and you can go back and check them on the playlist, some of my films. I actually showed one of my 16mm original films that were sent out from Ziv Studios all over North America. But anyway, that's hard. That's hard to do, very hard to do. And then I got them all on VHS, because you remember VHS, I hope. VHS was very popular at that time, it was 70s and 80s, so I got them all on VHS as well, which wasn't quite as hard. It was actually easier to get them on VHS. A lot of people, myself included, copied some of the Sea Hunt episodes from television. Yeah, we actually set up copies from television, yeah, because they were rerun. And they still show up once in a while on those, what do they call it, Kevin? Those not historical channels, vintage channels, whatever they're called, yeah. Sea Hunt still shows up occasionally. But anyway, that's hard too. And of course, VHS, who has a VHS player anymore? So then I started collecting them on DVD, and many of those were copies and copies and copies. And were however, you lucky people today, go to Amazon. Right, Amazon, punch in Sea Hunt, CDs, I guess it'd be DVDs, wouldn't it? Sea Hunt and DVDs, and guess what? Yep, you can buy the whole series of Sea Hunt on Amazon, and it's not expensive at all. And they're high quality. Some of them are remastered a little bit, and they're excellent. They're not necessarily in order, but you can order them yourself. That is, you can put them into order in your own little collection. But just so you'll know, Sea Hunt, starring Lug Bridges, the originals, black and white, by the way, which I kind of like. You know, I've watched, what's her name in The Wizard of Oz? Who was that? Judy Garland in The Wizard of Oz. Wonderful, wonderful little movie. And I've seen it recolored, remastered. Don't like it. But anyway, Sea Hunt is not colored. It's black and white, the way it always was. But you can pick them up, just for you folks out there, whether I'm wondering where you can get Sea Hunt. Okay, the second thing I want to show you before we get to our real topic is this, kind of special, another script. If you have seen some of my Sea Hunt Remembered episodes, then you maybe recognize this. The original scripts were in these red binders, red paper or red binders. This is an original Sea Hunt script. And this was sent to me by a very special person. This was sent to me by Betty Frazee. Who's Betty Frazee? Well, in fact, Betty Frazee signed it, sent to me, special. Betty Frazee was in several of the Sea Hunt episodes. She was a very young girl at the time, in her teens, and a master swimmer and diver. She did a lot of advertisements for a variety of marine companies, outboard motors, all kinds of products for the marine industry and swimming and all that kind of stuff. And she was at Silver Springs and was used as a double and a stunt person numerous times at Silver Springs. And this is one of her episodes, one of the famous episodes. We call it The Girl in the Trunk, where she was actually chained and handcuffed in a straitjacket and locked in a trunk that was dropped into the ocean. Silver Springs. And she would get free and come to the surface. It was a magic trick. And it was quite an interesting story because somebody didn't like her and he ruined the lock so that the diver that was down there taking, anyway, it's a long story. It was pretty neat. This was a script, an original script with notes in there. And this was sent to me by Freddie. You can see it's been used quite a bit, kind of special to me. Another addition to my collection of scripts. I have almost all of them now. All 155 of the scripts. I thought I'd mention that to you. Because I still get excited about this stuff. When something special like that arrives, boy, I go through the whole thing. This is neat. And it was handled. This was actually used in Silver Springs. We're going to be at Silver Springs in about 3 weeks' time at the big Sea Hunt Forever event. If you go onto the internet again and Google Sea Hunt Forever, I think you'll find the details of that. And there's a group of us sea hunt nuts. That's what I call them. I don't know if they like the term, but that's what I call them. Sea hunt nuts are going to be down there at Silver Springs, helping Silver Springs State Park to celebrate the park and sea hunt. And we put on scenarios. Yep, some of us are all dressed up in Mike Nelson era gear, very authentic equipment, and are down there wrestling with snakes and alligators and all that kind of neat stuff. It was a whole lot of fun. The people that are visiting Silver Springs, Florida at the time in the glass bottom boats, they sure love it, I'll tell you that. However, let's get to today's topic. You already know that the comic books were very, very popular. There were 13 comic books published in North America by Dell Publishing. 10 cents originally, and they finally, at the very end, I think it went to 15 cents originally. There were 13 comics made altogether. But these comic books and the Sea Hunt TV episodes were so popular that it wasn't very long before other countries were clamoring to have their Sea Hunt promotional materials as well. And so Sea Hunt comics were produced. And again, if you've seen a short episode I had a while ago on the Sea Hunt comics, you know that Sea Hunt comics were produced in Mexico and in Brazil, in the UK, and Australia, Germany, very, very popular in Germany for some reason. And so I just thought I'd show you a couple of these. This is a Sea Hunt comic that is from Mexico, for the Mexican market. It was produced and written in South America, and obviously written in Spanish. And you can see that I can't say this, but it is Domingos, don't laugh at me, Domingos Allegros, which basically is adventure, and El Investigator, Submarino, underwater investigator, something like that. But that's Mike Nelson, no question about it. In fact, that same image is on the on the English, the North American comics, the same image. Obviously, the company in South America that made these copies for the Mexican market was given the rights to use that same picture and given the rights to actually produce the comic book. And if you go through this comic book, I won't open it up completely, just a couple of pages. They're very old. These comic books are 60 years old. You can see that the pictures aren't English. That's a joke. The pictures are the pictures. It's the same pictures as in any comic book, but it's entirely in Spanish. I don't know if you can get close there and see that, but it's the same story. I have this very same comic book, of course, in the 13 original North American comics, and you can see it's exactly the same story all the way through. There are some minor differences besides the Spanish language. The advertisements, the inside front cover, is different because the advertisements, of course, in here don't advertise products you can buy in New York. They advertise products that they want to sell, that they want you to buy in Mexico. So the advertisements that are inside, what's in the back cover here, yeah, same thing here. I'm not even sure what that is. It looks like, I don't know what that is. There's an advertisement there for something available in Mexico. It says Mexico at the very bottom. See, so the advertisements inside are different, and the advertisement on the back cover is different as well. It looks as if this particular issue came out around Christmas time, because it looks like Navidad actually means Christmas, I believe, in Spanish. Pardon me. I should know Spanish a lot better. I spent so much time in Mexico. But anyway, so you see the ads are a little bit different than on the American ones. But there you go. So there's one, and there were quite a few of them. This again is another one. This is the second issue. And to the best of my ability, anyway, I've gone through the Mexican, to Mexican comic book collectors and the various books that are written that show the different comic books, Lone Ranger, and all the different books that were famous, including Sea Hunt, to see how many issues were made and their numbers, and I have them all, the best of our ability anyway. This is another well-known Sea Hunt picture, and on the back is one of those stories, those picture stories that you've seen before. Now this is interesting here. This is the only one that I'm aware of. Again, another Sea Hunt picture, and on the back, here's another one, exactly the same, right? Now on the back of this is one of those picture stories that appeared in the North American issues, and this is the same picture story. It's all in Mexican and Spanish, of course, but it's the same thing. But now here's exactly the same book. So why do I have two of these? Well, because this one is different. See the back cover? This is one of the original color stories. And then this is an advertisement, obviously, for Coca-Cola. That's Spanish. Coca-Cola. Sorry. Coca-Cola is obviously an advertisement. So this is what's called a variant. Again, if you saw one of my earlier episodes about comic books, you know that there was a comic book, and then there was a variant of that particular issue, and that variant was probably designed for a separate market, for a different market. So perhaps this was the book that was sold generally throughout Mexico in the various comic book stores, but maybe Mexico City, I'm just guessing here, but maybe Mexico City, they asked to have the same comic book, the same issue, but they wanted to have the Coca-Cola ad on the back because they wanted to promote Coca-Cola. I don't know, but that's what's called a variant. Same issue, came out at the same time, but a different ad on the back. There's another one, another famous Sea Hunt picture. Same pictures available, and it comes in the North American, and then another thing advertising books. I think this is about books. And one more, another well-known picture from the North American comics. And on the back, they're advertising Tarzan. Tarzan. Is that Spanish? Looks like it. Tarzan. El Personique. Aquila. That's it. That's my Spanish. Anyway, a different ad as well. Again, as I mentioned, these covers are exactly the same as on the North American comics, but the backs are different. Well, I imagine maybe a Woody Woodpecker here. Maybe this is on one of the North American comics, but this obviously is in Spanish, advertising Woody Woodpecker. Then this is the last one, number 423, same thing. And then on the back, this has, oh, I know, that's Charles Atlas. So there's an ad on the back for Charles Atlas. So there you go. There are this set of books that were published in South America, in Spanish, and designed for the Mexican market. Now I want to show you just one more. This is not part of that set. This is a part of a different set, and I'm showing this for two reasons. First of all, it's kind of related, and secondly, one of you watchers, one of your viewers there, is from Brazil, and I'm sorry I've forgotten your name, but we had quite a conversation. You're writing a book on Sea Hunt. And I was very interested in that, and if I can contribute in any way, either get you, I have lots of extras of some of these items, and I'm happy to send you a couple, or any information that you might have if you're watching this particular episode, get a hold of me again. And I thought I would show you this. I had mentioned in our conversation that it was a Sea Hunt comic. There it is again, a little different on the top here. Adventura Submarina, a little bit different. I don't know why. But anyway, that is obviously Mike Nelson. And this particular one, it has one of those picture ones on the back. This particular one is specifically for Brazil. It was printed and distributed for Brazil only. Now, it's very difficult for me to be sure. And maybe somebody else from Brazil as well, or from that area. Maybe you can find out whether or not this is the only Sea Hunt comic that was produced in this type of series. I did notice one thing about this comic. It doesn't seem to be, you see, it's not quite as bright. The colors are not quite as sharp and bright. I have that same comic right here somewhere. Is that it there? I think that's the same picture right there. Yeah, spear gun, same picture, modified a little bit. It looks as if they've taken the photograph out and changed the background to suit. That's fine. But anyway, it's not quite as sharp and bright as the other issues, and all the ads as well in this issue are all in Spanish. Interesting stuff. I haven't gone through every one of these, but anyway, there's one that was published and produced for Brazil. So if you're watching, the fellow from Brazil writing a book about Sea Hunt, get back in touch with me. We can share some more stories. Okay, well, there you go, Sea Hunt comics. But more importantly, again, showing you just how incredibly popular Sea Hunt was. Not only were the TV episodes shown worldwide, but many of the countries around the world said, hey, this is fantastic. Our watchers, our viewers, they love this show. Let's get some of those comic books and some of that other stuff. The UK was very popular. I have a couple of comics from the UK, couple, maybe, not maybe that many, but there's lots of games. For some reason, people in the UK and England, Great Britain, are into games. So I have puzzles and games all made in the UK for some reason, as opposed to being made in North America. But anyway, it gives you another idea of just how popular Sea Hunt was. That there were comic books that were made in the North American market, of course, but right across the world as well. And one of my upcoming ones, perhaps I'll get the German Sea Hunt comics out, because not only are they interesting, but this will shock you, there's a lot more of them. That's right. There's only 13 comic books issued by Dell in North America, but there's over 20 published and issued in Germany. And there's an interesting twist to that, so maybe I'll talk about that later. Anyway, I hope you found that interesting about Sea Hunt, a bit of history, and about the comic books of Sea Hunt, and how they're published worldwide, and how it's a great show, great TV show. And where to get the shows, too. Don't forget about those DVDs. I hope you enjoy that. Hope you found something in there of some interest. Alec, Peirce, Scuba, Sea Hunt Remembered. Talk to you again soon.